first of all, we have Ed Sander, and he's a co-founder of ChinaTalk. And as the name you can understand, he knows a lot about China, especially in the digital area. And also during COVID-19, he and I think he still does, keeps a blog about China. And also, I think you're going to learn us today a little bit about what we can learn from China, and not only have a lot of fear for China. So happy to learn more about this today. And we have Christian Kromme here at the left of me, and he's author of Unification. And you work as a speaker also for you talk about AI, Internet of Things, and you have an interesting view on how we should learn, how organizations should learn when it's about tech and also the nature. And we'll get to talk about this. And then on the right of me, there's Simone from Neerven. And you know all about digital innovation. And you do this with your own company called Rebella, if I say it correctly. And you work for companies such as Vueling and Chanel. And you work on building good ecosystems in which digital innovation can happen. And it's maybe also about how you can get the best out of people in digital innovation.
Very much about that.
Yeah, very much about that. Okay, you can. Did I miss anything introducing you guys? Does someone like to add something? Like Eva, you forgot something, or yeah, right? Okay. Well, I think we should dive in then, right, and get to the juice of this hour. And as I said, today it's going to be about the economy and technology. And first, we're gonna just kick off with a small little question. Of course, it will have a very easy and very clever answer. I'm kidding, because it's a big question, and we'll see how far we will get. And after that, we have two statements, and we would like to hear your opinion about it. Do you agree? Do you not agree? And why is that? And of course, we try to we give space so you can also interact with each other. And also, you're watching now. We're very happy to. And of course, we would be very happy also if you have a very daring question, you don't agree with something, then please let us know. And we'll see if we can make some space for it. We would love to. So please do so. I introduced the first question a little bit. And I'm gonna kick off. And of course, you're going to answer from your own perspective. And I was wondering, what do you think that is the biggest impact on our economy because of COVID-19? What impact does it make on our economy? And of course, you answered from your own perspective, but maybe it's easiest to start with China,
easiest.
where everything started.
Because the crisis started in China, we'll start with China as well.
Throw you in front of the lions here. Sorry, Ed.
Well, I think what we especially see in China is an acceleration of something that was already taking place. Mm-hmm. Lots of things that we've seen happening during the first months of the crisis, like robot cars driving around doing deliveries. Not that the whole China is just packed with these things, but experiments with that, and delivery of groceries. All kinds of health apps that they implemented very quickly in a matter of days. Well, we're still talking about the
yes.
Corona app, of course. So it's an acceleration of things that were already happening that just happened much quicker. Mm-hmm. Now they're currently also trying to get out of the crisis. You see sort of a recovery. It's still not above zero. The only thing that is growing still is e-commerce, mm-hmm. compared to offline retail. And it will definitely take much longer. Definitely take the rest of the year, mm-hmm. To recover from the crisis in China. But the acceleration is the biggest thing that we've seen happen.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think you also gave an example about drones telling people not to walk too close to each other.
That's
and now it's normal here.
Yeah, that's the thing that when that happened in February, everybody on social media said, well, look at that. That's something that can only happen in China. Like the authorities telling people via drone that they should keep distance and wear a face mask. And 1 month later it was in Belgium, and 1 month after that, or 2 weeks after that, it was in the Netherlands. And now it's become normal, whereas in the beginning we thought that's something like that can only happen in China.
Yeah.
And the same thing, the acceleration also happened here in the Netherlands, but much slower. I've compared it to watching a deja vu running in slow motion. As soon as the problem started here in the Netherlands, I saw exactly the same things happening, but just in a much lower tempo.
Yeah. So, but in essence, you're saying that the COVID-19 crisis made the acceleration of certain parts of the economy become, like the online services, the commerce,
online, working from home, things like that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think even Netflix and what is it, Hulu, or what is it in China? I don't know.
ICE, for instance, and Tencent Video.
Yeah. So we do
They've done good business.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And who would like to respond? What do you think, Christian?
Yeah, I fully agree. I think the whole crisis is a catalyst. It speeds up a lot of processes which already were in progress. And you see that the digital domain, companies that are focused on digital and have digital in their DNA, are doing quite well. The online retail, digital companies that enable collaboration on a distance, all these companies work quite well. And it also shows us the cracks which are in our traditional systems, in our traditional government structures, in our line of command, how we make decisions, how we learn from new situations, and that's incredibly slow. And I think in China it's much faster how they adapt to the...
They're making a difference between China and...
I think we are pretty slow here in adapting to new insights and new research. And
but I think COVID-19 helps catalyze it.
And I think we can use technology and the digital technology that we have today available to speed up the process dramatically. We can learn from big data and all this stuff and make much smarter decisions than we do right now. So.
Yeah, we'll dive into that later. It's great to hear some examples, of course. And just a small question to what you're saying is, you think some companies do very well, and what kind of companies do you think keep on doing well, because the crisis will continue a little bit longer probably?
I think the retail. I think Amazon increased in value a couple of $1 billion.
Yes.
The companies like Zoom, YouTube, all the e-learning platforms, all the online collaboration platforms, I think these companies will thrive dramatically because everyone is depending on them. Yeah. Many big corporations say that we'll work from home until the end of next year. So I think it's a bright future for those corporations.
And the more destructive part of the story, what kind of companies do you think will have a very hard time?
I think companies that depend heavily on physical presence. The event industry, for example, dance parties, conferences, all these things. I think those organizations which are focusing on physical assets, physical places to come together, so those kind of companies. Yeah,
and maybe we could presume that companies that are in tech, that they have a good time, or they have opportunities.
I think they are now able to leverage the power of technology.
Yeah.
And companies who are not into tech have a big problem because they have nothing to leverage.
Yeah.
To add to that, maybe.
Yes.
What I see is that in many more traditional companies, now is the time to innovate, right? There's lots of opportunities. But I also see, and you see those companies doing well, but paradoxically, in those more traditional companies, all the innovation teams and digital teams are kicked out.
Okay.
And part of the reason is that many of those innovation teams are they are built with a lot of external employees, and the first thing they kicked out was the external.
Yeah.
And so thinking about organizations as systems, this is interesting because I would say that innovation is not a nice to have, but it's the only way to stay relevant. But the first thing all these companies did was, okay, let's
so if I understand you, you're actually saying that these companies that already had a little bit of a hard time in innovating even make decisions that make it even harder.
Yeah, what I see is this crisis also brings a lot of anxiety, right? So I also see that a lot of managers higher up in the organizations, there is a lot of fear, and when you are in a world of fear, binary thinking takes over.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the world is so complex that you need to think more in
Systems,
tensions or in
yeah.
polarities, and much more complex thinking is needed. And
Mhm.
now this crisis is pushing for exactly the other,
Yeah.
the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we have a little bit of sense of what the guests are about, what is a little bit their say in these matters. So maybe we could dive into the first statement. So I'm curious what you guys are going to say. I'm gonna read it. The current crisis shows us that our current economic system is no longer sustainable. And with economic system, we mean the capitalist one, focused on growth, and which doesn't include externalized costs such as pollution, human rights. I don't know. Who wants to respond?
Well, yeah, I agree. I think
You agree, okay.
This is the end of a system. Which
One
is
person has to not agree, okay?
just for the sake of the
we live in a very unsustainable system, and the crisis shows us that more than ever. So I think we have to move towards more holistic systems, which are incorporating all the shareholders, nature, human beings, all these things. And it's not happening right now, and we see that happening.
And if we break that down a little bit, what do you think we can learn from what's going wrong now, so to say?
I think it's more of a conscious crisis. We see, just like in human body, we are also a system, a society of cells. And if we experience pain, we become more aware of the pain, and that something is going wrong somewhere in our body. And the same is happening on a society level right now. So we feel pain, societal pain, and it makes us aware that things are not going right. Our governments are not structured right. Our organizations have the wrong incentives. They're only profit-driven, and so I think it makes us more aware of the troubles that we have in our society. And
Can you give an example of like something that doesn't go well in our economic system that maybe keeps you up at night, or you keep on thinking about it, or wish you would have a solution for? Or
we are using the resources of this earth. We have 10 earths, but we only have one.
Mm-hmm.
So our resources are getting really scarce, and we have to become aware of that. And I think by going into a crisis, a resource crisis or a COVID crisis, a healthcare crisis like this, we become aware of that problem and we can act on it. And
so we also need the crisis a little bit, you're saying?
I think we need a lot of crises after this one to become fully aware that our current system is not sustainable and not circular like the future.
How's that for Simone? What in our current economic system worries you, or what something that you can learn from, or
what really worries me is that somehow, and I don't have the proof, I didn't do any study in it, but I'm a mathematician, so I always think in functions.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at what's happening with nature, and somehow it's accelerating, and the current models are not predicting what is happening, and it's happening faster and faster. So somehow I think we missed something in all these predictions.
Mm-hmm.
So that is what's really worrying me, because
that we cannot predict it anymore. That it's
no,
getting out of hand, or what do you mean?
That it's so accelerating, because we now have we have an agreement that in 2030 or 2050 we need to reduce CO2 levels with that, and I think it's just too late. It's just too late. So I'm worried about that. On the other hand, I work for companies in fashion and airline, which are the two most polluting industries there are out there.
Yes.
And I'm worried about the leadership, that they don't take responsibility to say this is enough. Mm-hmm. We're not going to fly as much.
Yeah.
It's a funny anecdote, but 2 years ago I worked for Vueling Airlines. I just started as head of innovation there, and I said, I have an idea. Maybe we should invest or collaborate or have a strategic partnership with a online conferencing or something like that in the virtual space.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, she's a lunatic. Right?
Yeah.
That would have been super cool if they would have done that. It would have been also a major statement. Mm-hmm. And I think that companies need to be, I always joked when I was living in Spain, I think companies need cojones. Mm-hmm. They need.
I happen to know what it means.
Yeah. They need to have these statements.
Yeah.
This is why I like Patagonia, for instance. and they just say all the benefit, part of our profits we're going to use again to open up what is happening in America.
Buying a shirt from Patagonia is almost as being an activist and paying
but
them to do their work.
They are going to spend money to show the real world and to show which campaigners are working against what is good for the world. I think that's bold. And we need much more of that. All those companies have lots of power, but they're not using it for the right purposes.
So the biggest thing you say is scarcity of resources. You say leadership and the way we should focus more on innovation. And what would you say, Ed?
Well, the thing that I can maybe add to it is if we go back all the way how this crisis started, it is basically by intruding too much on nature. Because at the end of the day, this jumped from bats to another animal, we're not sure which one, and then to human beings. And it's not really all that relevant if it started in China, because next time it will be Indonesia or Cambodia. So it's the intrusion upon nature that we see happening, combined with the extreme mobility that humanity has nowadays. If something starts somewhere, it will, as we've seen, spread all over the world very fast, and it's very difficult to stop that. So I think that sort of links to what you said about mobility and you about nature, is we're sort of like delving our own graves if we continue like this. So
I think you're also referring to this report of the World Economic Forum that's not only about the marketplace where the animals came together for the where COVID-19 supposedly started, but also because we don't have we have less forests and different animals interact that never interacted before. And that is so we're taking the space from the animals.
We're going so deep into the jungle that we come across diseases that have never been threatening us before. But so the same thing is probably going to happen in the Amazon. So.
I must say that these answers that you give feel or experience them being very far away from tech, but they're probably not so far away from technology. But I'm wondering how you do you have that same experience? Do you feel tech is a resource of a tool that can help us very easily with these challenges? Because it seems like two different worlds almost. Do you agree, or
no? I think it's all about human consciousness and the mindset that we have. Technology is, in my opinion, only a mirror, an amplifier, and we can use it to amplify that. If we have something in us, if there's some intention or purpose, technology can amplify that. So if we have a bad intention or a bad purpose, then it will also amplify that. And we see that right now in our environment. It's economy based on greed, on reptile-like behavior. So we need to evolve ourselves.
What do you mean with reptile-like behavior?
Very primitive. Fight, freeze. Flight or freeze is exactly what these traditional companies do. They cut away their innovation team because they're externals. So that's a typical dinosaur-like behavior. So I think we need to increase our level of consciousness, our level of mindset, and start to see the world from a different perspective, from a more holistic perspective. And if we do that, then technology can help us, but not any other way.
I just read the book of Simone, The Infinite Game. I don't know if you have already read it, but I find it, to become conscious about this, I find it interesting, because he says, if you play the finite game, that means there is an end. You have winners and you have losers. But this is very damaging for the world, and you should think about it as an infinite game, as that there is no end to a game. And actually, if you think about it, an organization should not think about, we win, because then there's also the end. If you want to stay there forever, you have to adapt, and you have to think about.
Agreeing with him about the mindset.
For me, I was reflecting a lot on before we came to this talk, and there was something in what bothered me a little bit, because it's so much. When I talk about innovation for me is not technology. It is technology and the human side, and it's those combined. And sometimes technology pushes changes, but sometimes human behavior pulls changes, and it's a marriage that goes along.
Do you have an example of a situation which people divide those two topics? Because I understand what you're saying, combining those, but it doesn't happen always.
No, again, I work for a lot of traditional corporates and try to change from within. I see many of those corporates are now transforming their IT departments towards tech, because tech is now the buzzword.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then they say, oh, we have an innovation team, oh, we make that part of this tech. And by doing that, you already discard like the human side of this. In my teams, I always have some service designers or some people who study human behavior, because I think that's the only way to be very effective when you innovate. But you see, once you notice, you see a lot of corporates going into that tech focus, tech, and then they have the CTO.
Mm-hmm.
Where is the human side?
I understand. And is there something that we can learn from China in this?
Well, there's a few things maybe. Well, first of all, I think that what we are seeing now with technology, and whether that's very fast or a bit slower, as here in Europe, we're currently mostly focused on how does technology help us solve the problems that this crisis creates.
Mm-hmm.
Like we go online to have our meetings and our Zoom sessions, and we have our groceries delivered, and we have platforms that are getting better and better, and companies like Picnic that are growing very fast. So it's currently focused on solving the problem. Another good example is China has been working on a lot of AI that does CRI scans and can decide very quickly if you have a high probability of having COVID-19, whereas a doctor might take 20 minutes to determine that based on a whole range of scans. AI can do that in mere seconds. So that's still trying to solve the problems of the crisis. I think what we need to go into is how do we keep this from happening again?
Yeah.
So technology should be more used to prevent this. Another thing that I do see happening in China, as far as technology and the economy is concerned, is what we tend to do is when we have a crisis, we try to keep everything running as normal, as much as possible. So we try to keep all of the air flight companies up, and we try to keep all of the other companies. We start paying.
We want to get back to normal as soon as possible.
And just help everybody survive. But what they do much more in China, they say, okay, this cuts out all of the dead wood. We get rid of a lot of things that shouldn't have been in the economy anymore. And what we're going to do is we will stimulate the economy, but in a different way. And that's what they call new infrastructure. So just like they did after the financial crisis in 2018, they stimulated the economy with a lot of construction and high-speed railways. They are now investing
They
in
use
AI.
it in their advantage, so to say.
So they invest in AI, and they invest in 5G networks in China to stimulate the economy, but at the same time get on a higher level as far as technology is concerned.
So if I understand you correctly, you're saying two things, I think, is that one of the underlying structures in the economy as it works now is that we're being very responsive instead of preventive.
Correct.
So also when you use technology, we're doing it in a very responsive way as a tool and not as a driving force that could be a preventive driving force.
Correct.
I think secondly, you're saying instead of, maybe it's also a part of our economy, I'm asking actually, is it true that you're saying that they were trying to keep things the way they are, and that's actually a feature of this economy also, and that the new economy is more of learning from whatever bad will happen and make it better. Is that what you're saying?
A crisis should shake out the things.
Is that what you're saying? Yeah. You're saying
I think nature is very good at solving. If specific organisms don't fit in the ecosystem, then the ecosystem reacts, and the organism has no reason to live anymore. That's very cruel, but I think the same is happening right now on a society level. So we are an ecosystem. If within that ecosystems are organizations which are not useful anymore, then they will die, and that will happen, I think, on a massive scale in the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay, maybe we should dive into a little bit like, okay, what then, right? So we've talked about scarcity of resources, about mindset, preventive mode, innovation, and the role it should have in big companies if you're smart, or maybe if you're wise, you could say. So the next statement is actually very close to the first one, is technology can contribute to a healthier, more sustainable and human-centered economic system. Do you agree or not?
Well, if used in the right way, right?
Okay,
Because
well, curious, what do you mean?
Yeah, you can also misuse technology.
Yeah.
I have no idea what will happen in the next 5 years, but I'm very concerned about how much data is being collected about us. And I'm aware of that, but I cannot stop it. But I see friends around me who just click on every cookie, they give their data on every platform. And I don't know what will happen with that. So you see 5G being introduced, AI is accelerating, supercomputing. So you see technology is able to make sense of this kind of data. Yeah, you can use it for the good, but
you don't. Yeah, okay, but you do believe it's also possible to use it for the good. And do you have examples, or do you say like, oh yeah, I do have hope because? Maybe we should wait a little bit for Christian and Ed. Maybe you do have an answer on it.
Yeah, maybe.
I think it's a hard question actually, because it's easy to figure out what's going wrong.
I got an example. Like you said, technology is quite often dual use. You can use it for good, you can use it for bad, you can use it for different purposes.
And it becomes a driver also. It's not even only a tool,
Yeah,
of course.
yeah.
That's what you're saying, actually.
So an example, for instance, is if you look at AI and if you look at facial recognition, which they're very far ahead with facial recognition application in China, which can be used to catch criminals. It can even be used in China to find children that have been abducted and live at the other side of the country, to find them again and
social
reunite
crediting,
them with
I believe. And
but it can also be used for surveillance and to follow people around and to gather a lot of data about them. So it can also be used for military purposes.
Yeah.
So there's always different sides. The technology in itself is never evil.
Yeah.
It's the way that you use it.
You gave an example of finding abducted children. We all want that, of course. And it's I don't know if it's the right way of putting it. It's kind of a functional, practical example. You earlier said should be more preventive, maybe even more system thinking for the complex problems that we have. Do you see trends in China, or maybe one of you, that has more that preventive mindset, or that mindset that we're hoping for? Is there hope? We want to give them hope.
Well,
or at least me.
Again, like I said, many things are used in different ways, some good, some bad. I mean, you can use facial recognition to find out if somebody is maybe infected with the virus and is not staying in quarantine. As they are supposed to do. So that's for good, but you can also use it for more dubious applications. Also, it creates a lot of convenience. Like in China, it's very normal nowadays to pay by facial recognition. You register your face, and in shops you can simply look into a camera and pay. But that's at the same time very creepy, because fingerprint verification is very difficult to sort of hack and abuse. And the same with passwords. As long as you keep a good password and you don't share it, it's very difficult to abuse. But if somebody can have your picture or your facial data, it might be much easier to abuse. Whereas at the same time, it makes life much more convenient for the Chinese people. So that's one of those things that is really difficult to see if it's a good or not good technology.
I think technology is neutral. It's like I said, it's a reflection of our inner being. And if you see bad things happening with technology, then it's because the wrong people are behind the buttons. And I think we have new technologies with a lot of opportunities, but it's used by the old mindset, by the capitalistic mindset. And that's why we see data collected about people used in the wrong way. But in the end, I believe the technology will be used for the good.
Do you see other trends? Do you see technology that can help us also rebuild our relationship with the new way of doing economy, or
Yeah, most of the times technology at first is used by the ego, by the head, to control and to do surveillance and stuff. But after a while, it's used by the ecosystem, and then it is used for good, used by the heart. The first GPS sensors were in cruise missiles going into bunkers in Iran, and now they're in our smartphones helping us to find our way. So we see always that technology is first used by powerful people to control society, and after a while we see a shift, and then it's used by the commodity of the people, and then it's used for good, because I think the majority of the people want good for everyone.
Yeah.
You wanted a story about hope, right?
Of course.
Maybe I have one. So
Yay.
this week I was on a call with a friend of mine. He's right now in Bangladesh. He works for the United Nations, and he's in the field. And there's a very large refugee camp where he leads the operations. 1 million refugees over there. And what he is doing, and it was for me really touching, is they're implementing a energy grid. So from energy consumers, they are going to be energy suppliers for the surroundings.
Yeah.
And that is also very nice because the refugees are not allowed to work outside the camp. So now they have work inside the camps. They provide power for the environment.
Become resilient.
Yes, and now they're going to install some pop-up stores so that they can buy with the money they get. It's not real money, but and they can get the stuff they need. So what normally the UN used to do is to say, here you have the stuff you need. Yeah. And now it's more a pool system where they can get what they want.
A more resilient way of
and what I like them. What I like is they use new technology, right? The power grids and everything to become more self.
Give them access. Instead of a central power having that access. Yeah. I also because you're talking about refugees, I heard that this neuroscientist gave me this example. Like an algorithm. You have refugees coming to the Netherlands, and we use algorithm to divide them over the country, and we look at how much space there is for them to live. Okay, you go to that town because there's space. He said you can also turn it around. You can make it a wise algorithm. You can say, okay, what tenants do they have? What tenant is needed? And of course you have the variable of housing, of course, but we change it around. We base the smartness to wisdom, and we say, okay, let's ask different things from this technology. I think you're a little bit on what you're saying, like that mindset first has to change, and then we can use technology in that way.
That's an extension of our body, basically. One example, for example, a good friend of mine, they use military-grade drones to observe and preserve wildlife in Africa, for example. So you can use technology to kill people, but also to preserve our wildlife. So technology is neutral. It's only how we use it.
Of course. We have a question or a remark? Or
if you can repeat the question. In response to what you're saying, that technology is neutral, for how long is that going to stay true if we have deep learning technology? Is that not going to remove itself from our intentions at some point, do you think?
I think it's a little bit about autonomy. So it's about deep learning, a question about deep learning, and how you're saying technology is neutral, and the question is about how long is that still going to be true? And I understand it's about that deep learning becomes kind of autonomous. So is it still true then?
I don't believe the technology has consciousness, so it will never replace humanity. But I see technology again as a mirror, and the more advanced technology is, the faster the feedback loop is that we get from it. And in the last 50 years, we have polluted the oceans. Now we have plastic soup problem. But in the future, when AI becomes faster and smarter, when we make a mistake or use it wrong, then we get it back instantly. So
you see the opportunity from a live feedback all the time versus faster, taking over.
Yeah. And I see it the same as the cells in our body, like the humans and the brains as AI in the cloud. They have to collaborate with each other. So one cannot exist without the other. It's like a marriage, like you said before. So you cannot see technology without human beings, and the other way.
And are there other ways or other situations you can think of in which live feedback helps immediately? Our problems, like the world that we want, for the world that we want.
I see technology as a coach. So if you have a good coach and you get instant feedback, if you do something wrong, a sport coach or whatever, then you learn faster. And this is happening with technology now on a collective scale. I believe that we will learn as a collective much faster now than we did
Yeah.
in the past.
Yeah, it also makes me think of the social crediting. Of course, like here in the West, we think, wow, that's crazy. You get minus and plus points for crossing the street.
Don't get me started about the social credit
Yeah,
system.
let's not go in that too deep. But
That's a whole different session. Let me just say that there's a lot of misunderstandings
Yes.
and misinterpretations.
Yeah.
It's not really a point system. It's just
Yeah.
a system of blacklists.
yeah,
And most of it is basically just if you don't pay your fines because you've broken the law,
Yeah.
you need to pay a fine, and if you don't pay your fine,
yeah,
that a judge has put on you, then you get put on a blacklist. What we've done is we've projected, and this happens quite often with China. We've projected Black Mirror
yeah,
on a
Yeah.
social credit system, but it's not very technologically advanced, and it's basically just binary. You're on the list or you're off the list, but you don't really have a point system.
yeah.
They also
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah, they confuse it with a loyalty system by Alibaba
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
Sesame
Yeah.
Credit. So
Yeah, and I didn't want to talk about it because of the negative part of it. But what if we would design it in a way that we would make it work for us? For example, the plastic soup question, or human rights, or anything like that. I was just trying to imagine how that would look
But
like.
you also have, I think you will always have the ethical questions. Who determines what's right or wrong, and who determines when you're on the list or off the list? So that will be, I think there will be a lot of debates on that in the next couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe a reflective question. And we started off almost more than 30 minutes ago. Like, what is your fear, or what do you think is broken in our economic system? And going back to that, there must be a spark somewhere, or a wish you would have. I mean, if technology is a mirror or our tool, how would you use it to make that better? What fear you just spoke of? So you were talking about scarcity. I think
Yes,
you were talking about innovation within companies.
Yes.
Could technology help with it actually, or yeah?
What I would wish for is that the mindset of people, of the individual, but also the mindset of the collective, right, in organizations will change. I see a lot of people are in burnouts and things like that. It's also because I think there's a mismatch on what they are doing and what they want to do deep down. And that's also partly because of how things are organized. So what I would wish for is that we could maybe use technology for maybe instant learning, also for leaders. How can you efficiently or effectively, and whatever that is the definition of, lead, but that leads to that people are in a better space, that their talents are more used and their passions.
And do you see these trends coming? Do you see tools like that helping you with this? Not yet.
No, the reason why I'm hesitating is because for me one of the most obvious things we need to do right now is to organize for diverse thinking. So that you have, there's a lot of discussions about diversity. I hate it when it's about men, women, because for me it's not about that, but it's about the diversity of thinking. And that is, I don't think, very difficult to measure. And I don't think a lot of companies do that, or somehow have a system in place. And that is for me like very basic stuff. You don't even need AI for that. So
sometimes the technical solution is no tech actually.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Exactly. So my hope is that people start to acknowledge that you can change the way we are organized, and especially these big companies, they have a lot of power. As I said in the beginning, it would be so beautiful if they would turn that for the good.
Yeah.
So
humanize or bring the human more into tech.
I also think that this crisis is showing that the companies who are loved more are the ones who are really authentic, giving back to society, and the ones who are showing some behavior that's not so okay, they are punished on social media. I saw the example of KLM, for instance. I think they said the first week they kicked out 2,000 people.
Yeah.
They were so a lot of people were upset about it because there was also a lot of support from the government. And then the excuse or was, but we are just, it's allowed for us to do that. It's ethical is not still, it's not good, right?
Yeah.
So I think that society is standing up and saying, hey, this is no good, so we're not going to support these companies anymore.
Yeah.
But probably you have more examples.
Yeah, I think that's another example of the reflection or the feedback system that we have right now. More transparency, information is shared very easily. So if some company does something that's wrong and they're telling it the other way in the news, then they're caught and they will see a huge drop in their shares, for example.
So that feedback is already mirrored in the social media, you're saying?
Yeah. It's a reflection of what these companies do, and also the not paying taxes in many countries, the big corporates.
It will become
like Amazon,
transparent, right?
Yeah. When more and more transparency is there, using blockchain-like technologies, then these companies cannot operate anymore within this.
And countries that are the tax paradises, which
like
is Netherlands,
like the Netherlands,
too.
number 4 on the list.
We're going to get into trouble in the near future.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think that the root cause of many problems that we were talking about is the centralized power structures that we have. I think that's in the fabric of everything that we have in our society, in organizations, in governments. And I'm currently working on a new startup which is creating swarm organizations. So decentralized, distributed power. Yeah. And I really think that is the key to solve many problems that we have right now, because then we, the people, get the power back again. And if that happens, then we have a tool or a platform to stand up and say, no, we are in power. We are the ones who want to make a world that is better and more sustainable. And then things really will change. And if we keep the current structures like they are right now, like pyramids of hierarchical structures.
Makes me think of Bellingcat, if I say it correctly. This, you could also almost say the citizen journalism platform that uses tech. They work with each other from all over the world and use. I think sounds like a swarm.
No, that's not. That's a very traditional.
Still?
Platform, It's a more social media platform for governments to get into contact with civilians. I really believe in if you look at nature, until 50 entities in a network, they work in a hierarchical way, like apes and wolves. Above that, they organize in swarms, like bees and fish and birds. And I really think that nature has tried it for billions of years, and they're very good at it. And I think we should look at nature and copy that behavior and implement that within our organizations. And if we do that, we become agile by standard. Because
be like butterflies and birds and bees.
These swarms can adapt very easily when there's danger or the environment changes. And we are very structured, solid, stiff organizations, and we cannot change. And the same thing happened with the dinosaurs a long time ago.
Okay, we don't want to be dinosaurs, right?
I think many organizations are. And they are too stiff in their behavior, too static. They're not able to change, and eventually they will fall. And
how do these swarm organizations use technology, like high level of innovation? What?
Well, they use, for example, artificial intelligence to make profiles. So, what is your intentions? What are your values? What are your skills? And with that profile, we match you with other people with the same purpose or the same intention, but with complementary skills. Yeah. So you create small flocks, small swarms that have a high sense of purpose, and with a team which is completely aligned with each other. So just like the cells in your body, they are there because they all follow their own purpose. And I think we are currently working within organizations not following our purpose. We work there because we get money to pay our mortgage and food and stuff. So we are not aligned with who we really are. And I think
that's also what you're saying, actually, that you get the burnout, you get the
it's very stressful.
Chronic diseases.
It's very stressful to work in an environment which is not aligned.
Because it doesn't flow. Like normally cells, you're saying, and they find an easy way to find each other. Yeah. And we are having a structure now, economically, but also organizations that prevent those cells, people, to find each other. Yeah. And you're saying technology will help with that.
Yeah, it will make it more fluid, more in flow. And I really think that just like the dinosaurs, the dinosaurs didn't invent mammals. So the dinosaurs will die, and they will a new offspring.
Don't
that
be a dinosaur.
Don't be a dinosaur. So yeah.
I think it should be the hashtag for today. Don't be a dinosaurs. Yeah. What do you think of what they're saying?
Well, if we look at what we should do differently and what my hope is for the future. I mean, we were talking a lot about technology, and is technology good or bad? Now, if you accept that technology is neutral, like you said, there is something very wrong with the attitude we have towards China, for instance, because we now, and that's also played up by the Trump administration. Basically, we have the feeling if it's from China, it's bad by definition.
Yeah.
Which is very strange. So you even hear it in the way that our politicians talk. If they talk about the way they are handling the crisis, the COVID crisis, they basically say we're going to do it this way because we don't want to be like China or we don't want to be like North Korea. And they have not really researched what they're talking about.
They don't have a vision on it. It's
No,
just
they
responsive.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and I think what we should do is we should be more open to learning from what's happening on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
We should also shake off the feeling of superiority, that we are superior, and that's just those crazy people in China.
Yeah.
We should also not think that every technology is evil because it comes from there. As a matter of fact, China is very far ahead in digital technology, and all of the innovation that I see happening now in Facebook, in Instagram, in Snapchat, is all innovation that was already introduced in China 5 years ago.
Yeah. So we're copying the China
so
products
whereas
now.
China used to copy the Western Silicon Valley products, now the opposite thing is happening. And what you see is that somebody, if you take Mark Zuckerberg, he really desperately tried to get back into China.
Okay.
And if he didn't, when he found out that he wouldn't succeed unless he would completely destroy the public image of Facebook, he decided to go the other way. And now you see him preaching against TikTok.
Okay.
TikTok is an evil product. So
it's also a way of doing business, right?
What I don't understand is that Europe is not conscious of the position they're in, because there are two big ones fighting for Europe. The US wants Europe to be the France and China. And if you look at China, has always been a world leader. They lost it 100 years ago. They're going to take it back, or they already have it.
Yeah.
So we should be. I think we should maybe make better friends with China and leave the US a little bit.
Yeah, correct. And if there's technology there, we should look at the technology, the core of that technology, and say, okay, maybe that way they use it in China is something that we can learn from. That way they use it, but definitely not gonna, because there's a lot of creepy stuff going on in China.
What is in your opinion the biggest misunderstood technology from China? Because when we started social crediting, there must be another example.
Social credit is one. I've mentioned facial recognition, but something that China is very far ahead of compared to us is ecosystems.
Okay.
They've built complete ecosystems in apps like Alipay and WeChat, and people can completely run their whole life from one app. Now, one of the advantages of that is that when something needs to change, they simply plug something new into that ecosystem, and that's why
even when it's about the common good, because this sounds consumer-minded and commerce-minded, but then when we're talking about a sustainable world or things like that, do you see examples of how they use those ecosystems and?
Well, they also use it for healthcare, for instance.
Maybe recycling also, things like that.
Recycling, well, they have these recycle bins in China that can recognize the product that is thrown into it.
Okay.
And can tell you, well, this is not supposed to be in the green bin, it's supposed to be in the red one.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and then it goes even further, because then they also can recognize your face.
Yeah.
And they can send you a warning.
Again this week.
That's
no plastic in this one.
No, but what you also see is that they are just building. I think Tencent announced that they're going to build a smart city close to Shenzhen. Yeah. And completely full of new technology. And
one big pilot probably.
Yes, but that's perfect, right? To learn how the future can be and what can work and not.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Autonomous driving as well. I mean, on one hand, it's going to save a lot of lives. And China will much more look at it like, if we implement autonomous driving, and there's less traffic deaths, that's a win.
Yeah.
Whereas we try to complete it so far that nobody gets hurt, and then we'll implement it. So it's a more pragmatic way of thinking about things.
Yeah.
So
They may be more conscious of conflicting values that will always be there in technology, and dare to take those choices, make those choices.
I think in China it's much more about the collective, while we are much more individual.
Correct.
Yeah.
Although I think that we are in between, literally, of America and China. And one is about capitalism, the ego, and the other one is more about the collective. I think we have an opportunity to become more human-centered in the middle somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think that's for Europe. I think a big
Also
opportunity.
because we have the democratic values that we
but also
value
for technology.
high.
For technology, in America, everything is about the Facebook and Google AI using for big surveillance capitalism. In China, it's the other way around. But I think we can find some in between here and create AI which is human focused and technology that is human focused.
Yeah.
So I think we have a role to play here.
The only thing we need to speed up, because
we are way behind.
Going much faster.
Yeah. Stick with the hashtag don't be a dinosaur. I look at Jouke. Is there like a big question that still needs to be answered, or everybody is agreeing, or?
Well, maybe one question is, what do you think the best thing is that we can get from this current situation in this context?
And before I go through this, I look at the technical guy. Do we have a few more minutes, or because we started a little bit later? Yeah, it's not that it's gonna cut off in so it's a few more minutes. Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, what is the best thing we can get from this situation, this uncommon situation that we have right now? What do you think is the best thing we can take from this for all your sustainable plans in the future?
Yeah, so what can we take from this situation to go to the better world, so to say? Well, actually, that's also the last question. So I'd like to ask you, if you need a reflective moment, do so. What would be something you'd like to give? Of course, there are a lot of people watching this. What would you like to give them as advice, or a thing to think about, or question that keeps them awake at night? No, I'm joking. But is there something that we can end this hour with?
Yeah, what I think what's very good from what we learned from this crisis is that we were locked down, and then everybody now knows how valuable social contact is. So I think this is also about the human side of things. It's nice to be here together, right, and not behind the screen
Definitely.
So I think people start to become aware how important that is.
Yeah.
And maybe that reflects a lot about what we have been talking about. Technology is an enabler, but it's also about how
the humanizing of the technology, the social contact you're saying, that needs to be keep on being central and essential. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it's also taking us out of our traditional routines. And it gives us the opportunity after a lockdown to learn new routines. And that's, I think, what we need. We need to obtain a new mindset, new routines, and that's very hard to do.
Yeah.
But if you have some neutral zone in between, like the lockdown, then you're able to say goodbye to all the routines. And
can you make it more concrete? Do you have like a practical question or advice you could give to someone that's like, okay, that sounds good, Christian, but how am I doing this tomorrow when I log in my online environment or at my office?
Yeah.
It's like a question that you ask yourself always, for example.
I think change starts with yourself. I think that's the most important thing I want to leave people with. We wait for our CEOs and our governments to make changes, but they won't do it because they will stay the same. That's just like organisms; they stay the same. So if you want change, you have to do it ourselves. And I think you have to look in the mirror every morning and say, okay, what can I change in my environment today?
Yeah.
Small steps, but
Okay, well, that's good advice. What do you think, Ed? Will it be China and China?
Yeah, well, I can take this a bit broader. I think there's two big learnings we can take from this. The first thing is what we've discussed: be quick, be agile, be open to change, and
preventive, not responsive.
Preventive. Yeah. I mean, don't like we said, don't be a dinosaur. Be ready for something unexpected.
Yeah.
On a different note, what I have found the most disappointing thing about this whole crisis in the past 6 months is that I've always had the belief that if there's a common enemy, that humanity would team up and get together. And I've seen the absolute opposite happening. And I hope that we can also maybe learn something from this, and that maybe that needs a different leader in China and a different leader in the US that can work together on a different way. But I found that really, really depressing. That common enemy theory doesn't hold up in the current world. So I hope that that's a learning that we can take for maybe the next crisis, because it's going to come. Sorry.
They keep on coming always, right?
Sorry to end on a depressing note like that.
I think the watcher has something to think about. So, some ending words from someone, or should we leave it with this? Something else you really like to add?
No, I was reflecting on it just a little bit, but you say we need to break with traditions and technology is helping. I wonder if technology helped us during this COVID crisis, because we one-on-one copied our office work to online 9 to 5 Zoom meetings.
It's still the same, you're saying.
It's even maybe worse. So I think in this case technology maybe did not help. But
we could learn from it. You're saying like maybe it could evolve to something else.
No, and that you always see that, right? Technology first you copy paste what you know, and then the same, and then you start to understand. So I hope more flexibility comes out of this, right? That people are now like, okay, I'm wake up at 6, I do some work, and that's fine, and then I go with my kids and play around. That's
so more balance in
well, more flexibility and more in tune with your biorhythm.
So not humanize technology, but also the way we work and our economy and
work and live.
Well, luckily we're at a Humathon, so that is an answer that suits perfectly. I'm gonna thank you for watching this, and Ed, thank you very much for being here. Christian, also very much, and Simone, thank you, and of course the Hague Tag for hosting us. And we always want to know, of course, what you think. Did you like the online meeting? Do you have questions? And I'm sure you can reach out to them through us. So do so. And I think we should end this online meeting with the hashtag Don't Be a Dinosaur. Bye.